Take a look at this. These are the 108 public figures in Pennsylvania who endorsed Conor Lamb ahead of last night's Senate primary in that state. We had to shrink the font in order to fit them all on one screen. The list includes multiple members of Pennsylvania's congressional delegation, the mayor of Philadelphia, the Democratic leader in the state Senate. The list goes on and on and on. A lot of names. Now, take a look at this list. These are the 15 public figures in Pennsylvania who endorsed Lamb's opponent, Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. The most influential name on that list is the mayor of Scranton, Pennsylvania's sixth largest city. And yet, John Fetterman won that race by nearly 33 points yesterday, days after suffering a stroke on the campaign trail. Fetterman had been the front-runner in that primary since the day he entered the race, but the Democratic Party establishment of Pennsylvania threw all its support behind Lamb in what was frankly a bizarre attempt to undermine a popular, plain-speaking, progressive candidate. But that was not the most bizarre attempt, to undermine a popular, progressive candidate in last night's primary elections. There was worse.
She calls herself a Democrat, but Summer Lee said she wanted to dismantle the Democratic Party. Summer Lee, more interested in fighting Democrats than getting results. UDP is responsible for the content of this ad.
That was an attack ad targeting progressive candidate Summer Lee in the Democratic primary race for Pennsylvania's 12th congressional district. The message there is clear. Summer Lee is not a real Democrat. If you want a real Democrat, do not vote for Summer Lee. But notice what it said at the end there. UDP is responsible for the content of this ad. UDP stands for United Democracy Project, a super PAC affiliated with the national pro-Israel group AIPAC. Now, set aside for a second the fact that that attack ad has nothing to do with AIPAC's stated goal of supporting Israel. AIPAC is not a liberal group. AIPAC is currently supporting 109 of the 147 Republicans who refused to certify President Biden's legitimate election victory. But here they are in a Democratic primary running ads saying you should not vote for a progressive candidate because she might fight with other Democrats. According to the progressive group More Perfect Union, that AIPAC-linked super PAC, along with another pro-Israel group, spent more than $3.3 million in that one congressional race trying to defeat Summer Lee. Right now, though, Summer Lee leads her more centrist opponent in that race by around, less than 500 votes, with nearly all precincts reporting. So that may not have been money well spent. We'll see. But elsewhere, anti-progressive super PACs have had more success. Last night in North Carolina, a group of super PACs, including those two that I just mentioned, spent millions to defeat progressive candidate Nida Alam in the Democratic primary for North Carolina's 4th congressional district. Alam was campaigning on an anti-hate platform after her friends were killed in an anti-Muslim hate crime in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Outside spending in that race favored her opponent by nearly 10-1. Alam lost her primary last night by 10 points. Also in North Carolina, those same PACs spent millions to defeat Erica Smith, a pro-choice candidate who was running against a Democrat with a history of supporting anti-abortion causes in North Carolina's 1st district. Outside spending favored her opponent by nearly 4-1. Smith lost that primary by more than 30 points. A similar group of super PACs have already spent more than $2.2 million to try and defeat progressive Jessica Cisneros in her primary race against the House's lone anti-abortion Democrat Henry Cuellar ahead of next week's runoff. So, what were the lessons for progressives last night? And how can they stand up to this wave of outside spending against them in Democratic primaries going forward? Joining us now is Alexandra Rojas, Executive Director of the group Justice Democrats, which supports progressive candidates in races across the country. Hello. Thank you for joining us this evening. Justice Democrats has been involved in a lot of primaries. We've discussed it, you and I, many times. AOC, Jamal Bowman. Is it fair to say that outside spending against progressive candidates has increased in recent election cycles, especially this one?
That would be absolutely correct. And I would argue that there are several organizations and entities that have formed since the beginning of Justice Democrats because they would rather, you mentioned Summer Lee in Pennsylvania 12, light money on fire in a lot of cases than invest in candidates that look like the base of the party, which is increasingly working class, progressive, and women, especially Black women, being the backbone of this party. So it's definitely been an increase in cycles, and one that we've expected. But I think that's what's so exciting about this moment is that at least in Pennsylvania 12 and some of these other progressive races around the country, it looks like it is going to be a defeat of corporate super PAC spending and an establishment that consistently tries to buy our elections with corporate millionaire candidates. And we're seeing working class people reject that. And so that's what we try to do at Justice Democrats is support these working class challengers because it can feel really hopeless. I think across the country there, you pointed out, they're spending over $13 million trying to go against sometimes democratically elected candidates. And so we're trying to go up against that. And if folks want to check this out, yeah, go ahead.
In this particular Pennsylvania race with Summer Lee, I mean, it's bad enough to have, corporate PAC, super PAC spending dark money, et cetera, but why has AIPAC gotten into this fight so aggressively? And why do none of their ads mention Israel, which is the issue they actually lobby on?
Well, I mean, I think that, what we have seen is that it's not just about this one issue. It is about defeating progressive women of color in a lot of cases. It is about stopping this rising generation of diverse working class progressive leadership who is willing to take a stand on human rights across the board, no matter what country might be violating them. And so, we have seen in this election that they are going to spend whatever they can, but there is, they can spend a lot, but it's about progressives building the infrastructure cycle after cycle, which I think we are seeing. The first cycle in 2018, obviously, we had a huge upset election with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez unseating Joe Crowley. The rest of the squad, from Ayanna to Rashida to the next cycle, there was Jamal Bowman and Marie Newman and Cori Bush. And so we are feeling really, really good, even though it's really hard right now for so many, because cycle after cycle, we are growing against an institution that has had decades of support before. Go ahead.
Sorry, we're almost out of time, so I'm jumping in. Quick last question. If Summer Lee wins the general election, gets elected to Congress, joins the squad, what's the strategy? Is there going to be a lot more flexing of progressive muscles in the House?
Well, I mean, I think that, we're all on board to make sure that we get through the general election. If she gets elected, she would become the first Black woman to ever represent the state of Pennsylvania. We are very explicit about what we're doing at Justice Democrats, which is building a mission-driven team on the inside of Congress that's going to fight for the, solutions that match the scale, scope, and urgency of the problems that we're facing and reject corporate PAC money. And we're going to make sure that especially heading into November, where, we don't know what the majority will look like, is going to be really critical.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll have to leave it there. Alexandra Rojas, Executive Director of Justice Democrats. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.